So what if I want to learn more about scenes in general? Not a whole lot to go on. Okay, so whenever I'm in this situation where like, so there are two types of documentation, right? I think most programming people know this, but a lot of people who just program a little bit or don't program at all don't understand this, and it's a blocker to getting into programming in the first place. Is like there are two different types of documentation. One type is the narrative documentation that tells you about how to use a thing. It's like almost tutorials or like reference materials, like what you would find in a book on a subject. And then there's API documentation, which just tells you, hey, here's some enum that exists, and here are all of its variants, and here are all of its implementations and stuff. And you know, in general, I'd rather start at the narrative documentation if it exists, but it's a lot less likely to exist. It's also less likely to be accurate, which is an interesting thing that people often forget. I feel like they're stuck on the documentation and they're not looking at the API documentation, which might be more up to date in some way. So it seems like there's not that much info on scenes in the kind of narrative documentation, which in this case is the unofficial Bevy cheat book that some kind soul wrote and that has been very helpful. So instead, let's go take a look at scenes in the API documentation.